Welcome to our online election board worker training for clerks and judges. We normally like to do training in person, but with the current environment, we know it's best to do training in this manner. While we are in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, it's important for us all to remain safe. Specific instructions on safety at your polling site will be addressed at the end of this training. This training will allow you to understand your roles as clerks and judges. Each election board worker will be issued an election board manual. There will also be a manual in the Blue Book. Please read it thoroughly prior to Election Day. If you've received your manual, please follow along as we will continually refer to it throughout the training. The manual is also available on our website under the Election Board Worker Information link. Election Board General information will be found on pages 1 to 4 of your manual. A normal election board consists of an inspector, clerks, and judges. For this election, clerks and judges need to be willing to serve in both positions. Basic requirements for poll workers are good eyesight, ability to sit from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., ability to follow instructions and write legibly, the ability to assist in setting up the polling area, including setting up the polling booths and the express vote. State law requires election board workers to attend training prior to each statewide election. This online election board worker training will count as your training. There is a quiz on our election board worker information page on our website. Once you take that quiz, you will be credited with taking the training. Election board conduct. Please refrain from excessive and loud visiting with each other. Treat all voters with courtesy. Avoid asking personal questions of a voter unless required as an election duty. TVs, radios, and newspapers are not allowed because of political advertisements. Do not engage in any political conversations while conducting the election. Do not smoke inside any polling place. Please use the designated exterior smoking areas. We have two types of election board workers. Appointed election board workers have been assigned to a specific precinct or polling place for a 2-year period. Reserve election board workers are substitute workers who have been called upon to take the place of an appointed worker who is unable to serve a specific election. Breaks and lunches. Breaks and lunches are permitted. The board should work together to make sure that there are 15-minute breaks in the morning and afternoon, and also 30 minutes for lunch. The inspector is responsible for the payroll sheet. First thing on the morning of the election, each board worker should print his or her information on the payroll sheet and include an emergency contact name and phone number. Clerks and judges are paid $9 per hour and are also paid for training. If you are not working in your home precinct, it is important to request an early vote ballot. Applications are available on our website at lancaster.ne.gov/election. Emergency procedures are located on page 4 of the manual. For severe weather, follow the building's emergency procedures. Move to a place of shelter. Without jeopardizing the safety of workers or voters, the board should take ballots, ballot box, and the list of voters in the sign-in register with them. Other Election Day information is located on pages 7 and 8 of the manual. Election board workers should report to their polling location at 7 a.m. to assist in setting up for the day. Polls are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. No voter may cast a ballot prior to 8 a.m., and anyone who is in line at 8 p.m. must be allowed to vote. If a line forms, please check that to see that if all voters are in the current location. If there's more than one precinct located at the polling location, please make sure they are in the right line. Electioneering. There is to be no type of electioneering for any candidate or measure that is currently on the ballot for the current election with 200 feet of any polling location unless it is on private property not controlled by the ownership of the building in which the polling place is located. All cell phones should be silenced but are not required to be turned off. A voter may take a picture or selfie of them casting or marking their own ballot. Any voter may challenge another voter's eligibility to vote. This does not happen very often, but a challenge oath is located in the supply box. It is printed on goldenrod paper. You may answer questions from the media regarding the number of people who have voted. If they persist in asking you additional questions, please have them call the election office at 402-441-7311. Election Day visitors will include district inspectors, express vote technicians, observers, and exit pollers. If you have not worked as an election board worker in the past, you will notice that there are several things that are different this year. First, we have a new election board management system which allows our office to communicate with our election board workers through emails and texts. If you have an email address, please make sure our office has it. This new system also allows election board workers to respond through an online portal and under normal circumstances schedule a time for training. We appreciate your understanding as we implement this new system. The express vote. The express vote is a machine that replaces the automark, which we had used for a number of years in the past to assist voters with disabilities to vote in private and unassisted. Ballots now have a coding tract, those little black boxes on all four sides of the ballot. Previously, the coding tract was just on the left side of the ballot. Voters will mark their ballots with a black pen. You will also notice that the ovals on the ballot are smaller. Judges will initial the ballots in red ink, and please keep the initials within the initials ballot. Manual pages 9 through 15 outline the duties of the inspector. Since this is training for clerks and judges, we will not discuss this with the clerks and judges. Manual pages 16 through 20 outline general instructions for clerks. Clerk number 1 is responsible for the list of registered voters, which is located in the blue book. The blue book is a 3-ring binder which will be located in the ballot box when the inspector picks up the supplies. Contents of the blue book include a signature guide which can be used as a guide for a voter with vision issues to sign on the correct line in the sign-in register. The list of registered voters will also be in the blue book. Voters' names are listed in alphabetical order. The number the voter appears in the list of voters is in the first column. The clerk will also print the line number from the sign-in register in the first column. The second column lists the voter's date of birth. The third column lists the voter's name and address. If there is a check mark to the right of the voter's name under ID required heading, this only means that the voter needs to provide proper ID in order to vote. There are only a handful of voters in the county required to do this. Instructions for this is on page 17 of the manual. The fourth column lists the precinct number and ballot styles. Most precincts only have one ballot style, but there are 33 precincts that will have more than one. This is important to make sure the voter is given the correct ballot for this election. The fifth column is where the clerk will print the voter's name once the voter has verified all the information in the third column. If the word inactive is listed in the fifth column, it means that the election office has received some type of information that the voter may no longer live at that address. Please double check that the voter does live at that address before allowing the voter to vote. If the voter has a new address, the voter needs to vote in the precinct of his or her new address. If the word absentee is listed in the fifth column, that means that the voter has been issued an early vote or an absentee ballot. If the voter still wants to vote, the voter must vote a provisional ballot. The sixth column has a barcode which represents the voter's registration number and is used after the election by the election office staff. You will have a corrections and notations page which is on yellow paper. This is a page where the election board can place any corrections for the election staff to follow up after the election. The provisional ballot page is on pink paper. Any voter who votes provisionally must be listed on this page. The payroll form is found in the blue book is on green paper. The inspector is required to make sure this is completed correctly. Your ballot log card is also located in the blue book. You also have a page listing the election day poll worker hotline, which is 402-441-9090. Election board workers may use this phone number to reach an election staff member to assist them if they have any questions. There's also an abbreviated instruction sheet for election board workers that outlines the responsibility of each worker. There's also an instruction sheet which will assist election board on how to access the voter check website information if you have access to a smartphone, tablet, or laptop at your polling location. There's also a sheet that outlines for polling accessibility guidelines for the election board workers to review and make sure their polling site meets all of the requirements. We will also have an election board manual located in your blue book, as well as an individual precinct map of your precinct. It will be located in the blue book. We will also have a listing of possible emergencies and how to handle them, and that is also located in the blue book. We will now talk about the clerk's responsibilities. Clerk number 1's duties are outlined on page 15 to 18 of your election board manual. Clerk number 1 checks the voter in. Clerk number 1 asks the voter for his or her name and then locates them in the list of registered voters. Clerk number 1 then asks the voter for his or her address and verifies that it matches the address that is listed in the list of voters. Clerk number 1 then checks the voter's ballot style, if in a precinct that has more than one ballot style. Clerk number 1 then tells clerk number 2 the voter's name and ballot style, again, if they're in a precinct that has more than one ballot style. Clerk number 1 prints legibly the voter's name in the fifth column under the printed name of voter, and then clerk number 1 prints the line number from the sign-in register where the voter will sign their name. Important. Big reminder, clerk must print the voter's name under the printed name of voter column after verifying all information. When the inspector picks up supplies, the inspector will be provided with a list of voters who have voted early after the poll books were printed. One poll worker should print the word absentee in the list of voters next to these voters' names. This is a listing of precincts that have more than one ballot style for the primary election. If a voter notes an error in the list of voters, such as transposing of letters in a name, or that there is someone on the list of voters who no longer lives in Lancaster County, this should be listed on the corrections and notations page. It is on yellow paper. Clerk number 2's duties. Clerk number 2 is responsible for the sign-in register. The sign-in register will be found in the ballot box along with the ballots that the inspector has picked up the day prior to election. This is a picture of what the inside of a sign-in register looks like. Once clerk number 1 has verified the voter's name, address, and if in a precinct that has more than one ballot style, the clerk will provide that information to clerk number 2, and clerk number 2 prints the voter's name under clerk prints voter's name in the sign-in register. The clerk then places a check mark under the appropriate column on the left side of the sign-in sheet. Then the clerk number 2 turns the sign-in book around and the voter signs his or her name and prints his or her address. Instructions for judges can be found on page 21 through 23 of the manual. Judge number 1 is responsible for issuing the ballot. Remember, we are no longer marking the ballots with pencil. New for this year, judges will initial the ballot in red ink, and please keep initials within the initials box. 2 judges of different political parties must initial the ballot in order to make the ballot official. If you are serving in one of those precincts with more than one ballot style, the ballot style number will be indicated on the lower left-hand corner of the ballot. This is a sample of a ballot for this election. Also new for this year, voters will be marking the ballot with black ink. We are no longer using pencil. Also, there will be races and issues on both the front and back of the ballot. The judge should give the following instructions to the voters. These are listed on page 22 of the manual. Blacken the ovals completely, of your choice completely. Use only the black pen provided. Do not cross out. If you change your mind, ask for a new ballot. Inform the voter that the ballot has 2 sets of initials on it, making it official. When the voter is finished, they should bring the ballot back in the ballot sleeve. So both sets of initials are shown. This is a sample of the ballot sleeves. The judge's initials must appear in the cutout at the bottom of the ballot sleeve when the voter brings the ballot back to the judge. The voter will then go to the appropriate polling booth or to the express vote to cast his or her ballot. Judge number 2 is also responsible for initiating ballots along with judge number 1 and processing the voted ballots. When the voter brings the ballot back to judge number 2 in the ballot sleeve, judge number 2 should look for the initials in the opening at the bottom of the ballot sleeve. Verify that the ballot is official, which means there are 2 sets of initials at the bottom. If that is the case, then the ballot is deposited into the ballot box. If the voter makes an error on the ballot, the voter may request a new ballot. The ballot with the error on it must be spoiled by the voter writing void on the ballot, and the voter is then issued a new official ballot. The ballot marked void is placed into the spoiled ballot envelope. If the ballot is returned to judge number 2 and there are no initials or only one set of initials, then the ballot must be rejected and the voter issued a new ballot. The voter should write rejected on the ballot and then issued a new official ballot. The rejected ballot is placed into the rejected ballot envelope. Provisional voting procedures are located on pages 24 to 26 of the manual. Provisional voting allows a voter to cast a ballot if their eligibility is in question or otherwise could not be permitted to vote at their polling place. The content of the provisional ballot is no different than a regular ballot, but is cast provisionally until the election officials can verify the voter's eligibility to vote and are voting at the correct precinct at that election. Reasons that a voter will need to vote provisionally: 1, the voter has moved to a new street address, even if it is in the same precinct. 2, the voter is flagged absentee in the list of voters but has decided to vote at their regular polling place on Election Day. And 3, the voter is flagged ID required in the list of registered voters but does not provide the appropriate identification. That information again is located on page 17 of the manual. Each precinct will have approximately 50 provisional ballot packets. In the front of each provisional ballot packet, there will be provisional ballot voting checklist with a step-by-step instructions. We will go through those instructions now. Step 1, verify that the voter is in the correct precinct and polling location. This can be done by using the maps provided in the Blue Book and supply box. You could use the Voter Check website. Instructions are also in the Blue Book. You can also call the poll worker hotline, 402-441-9090, and make sure you have the voter's name, date of birth, and their new address. The election board worker and the voter must complete all 4 sections of the provisional ballot application form. Section 1, poll worker will complete this portion, which includes the location of the polling location, where the voter is voting, plus the reason the voter is voting provisionally. Section 2, voter completes this section with their new address. This section is a Nebraska voter registration application. Section 3, the voter selects a 5-digit PIN number, personal identification number, which will allow the voter to find out after the election whether their ballot was counted or not and the reason the ballot was not counted. Section 4, the voter signs the form. Next is the provisional ballot envelope. The voter will complete section 1 and signs that section. An election board member completes section 2. The clerk will then print the voter's name, address, and line number from the sign-in register on the provisional voter page in the Blue Book. Clerk will print the voter's name in the sign-in register along with the appropriate check marks indicating a check mark under the provisional ballot column. Then the voter will sign their name and print their address. Voters needing assistance information may be found on page 27 of your manual. If a family member or friend assists a voter, the person assisting the voter must sign the voter assistance form in front of the sign-in register. Express vote information is found on page 27 of the manual. The state of Nebraska has purchased new machines that assist voters with disabilities to be able to vote in private and unassisted. The express vote will be delivered to the polling location prior to Election Day. There is a separate video available on our website explaining how to operate the express vote. This machine replaces the old Automark, which was heavy and cumbersome to set up, operate, and move. There is a separate video available on our website explaining how to operate the express vote. There is also a 2-page instruction sheet that explains how to set up the express vote. In addition, an express vote technician will visit your polling site first thing in the morning to make sure you have it all set up correctly. There will be a 2-page instruction sheet on how to simply set up the express vote. Both are located in your supply box as well along with the express vote. Closing of the polling place. This information is found on page 29 of your manual. Polls do close at 8 p.m. and anyone in line at 8 p.m. still must be allowed to vote. Please make sure you sign all forms. Place all unused ballots in the clear plastic bag with the yellow unused ballot sheet insert. Make sure your rejected ballots are sealed in the rejected ballot envelope. Make sure any unused but initial ballots or any spoiled ballots are sealed in the spoiled ballot envelope. Include everything listed on the sign-in register envelope has been placed in that envelope. Put all supplies neatly in the supply box and clean up the voting area. Voted ballot procedure is on page 31 of the manual. At the end of the day, 2 poll workers of different political parties will open the ballot box and count the number of ballots, including the express vote ballots cast, plus the number of provisional ballot envelopes in section 1. This number should match the number of voters you have in the sign-in register. Once this step is completed, then place the ballots, including the provisional ballot envelopes and express vote ballots, and place them in the ballot transport box along with the ballot log card. In the supply box, you will find seals for the transport ballot box. You will find on the ballot transport box where the seals should be applied. In the supply box, you will find name tags with a lanyard. Please place your name on the name tag prior to the opening of polls on election morning. Each precinct will be provided with a polling site sanitation kit, which will include masks and shields for poll workers, masks to be offered to voters if they do not have one, a large bottle of hand sanitizer, 25 pairs of gloves, a canister of disinfecting wipes, disinfecting spray, and paper towels. Specific instructions will be provided with your supplies. Social distancing is important. Please keep 6 feet distances between voters in line. Please mark the lines with the blue painter's tape and space them 6 feet apart. Also, please place polling booths 6 feet apart. You may also place a polling booth further away for voters who are not wearing masks. This is the end of the training for clerks and judges. We appreciate your help and good luck on Election Day.